Mr. Speaker, it's with a heavy heart and against my long-held belief that the interests of this country are better served as a member of the European Union that I will support this bill. In 2015, I promised the good people of Broxtowe that if I was elected to represent them for another term, and in accordance with my party's manifesto, I would vote for an in-out referendum on our EU membership, agreeing in the words of David Cameron that the people would settle the matter. And I promised to respect and honour the vote. So on June the 9th of 2015, along with 544 members of this place, I agreed to that referendum, and in so doing, I agreed to be bound by the result. Now, my right honourable and learned friend, the member for Rushcliffe, was not in favour of that referendum, and he didn't vote for it. So, of course, he's free and able to vote against this bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure it's no coincidence. He also happens to enjoy a considerably large number of people within his constituency who voted Remain, and he has quite wrongly, in my view, announced that he will not be standing again in 2020. But, Mr. Speaker, what I would say to all those opposite, you can't go back on your word because you don't agree with the result. But I want to say this. I believe history will not be kind to this Parliament, nor indeed the government I was so proud to serve in. How on earth did we ever come to put an alternative to the people, which we then said would make them worse off, less safe, and would weaken our nation? I greatly fear, and echoing the wise words of some of the speech from my honourable new friend, the member for Sheffield Hallam, that I greatly fear generations who either didn't vote or are yet to come will not thank us for our great folly. And neither will they forgive those who have chosen since June the 23rd not to be true to their long-held views, who've remained mute as our country has turned its back on the benefits of the free movement of people, the single market and the customs union. And without, Mr. Speaker, one moment, and without, Mr. Speaker, no debate, far less any vote in this place. Why is that? And this needs to be said and recorded. Our government has decided that the so-called control of immigration, which actually means the reduction, because that's what so many people actually believe in our constituencies, that so-called control, the reduction of immigration, is worth more than the considerable benefits of the single market and the customs union. And what has been even more upsetting, in my view, is the fact that the front bench of the party opposite has connived with them. The government was never going to give us the opportunity of debating these important matters for reasons that I genuinely understand and indeed respect. But for the party opposite to go against everything it has ever believed in is really quite shameful. It's a combination of incompetence on its front bench and a deep division amongst so many, with a few honourable exceptions, and I include, of course, the honourable member for Leeds Central. But they have turned their backs on their long-standing belief in the free movement of people, and they have failed to make the positive case for immigration. Now, I will give way, but let me keep going if I may. Mr. Speaker, this referendum vote exposed a deeply divided Britain, and no better place has it been exposed than in the party opposite. They have been petrified, literally frozen to the spot, looking over one shoulder and seeing their constituency Labour parties having been taken over by the extreme left, and beyond that, in many instances, up to 70% of their own voters voting Leave. But, Mr. Speaker, what's happened to our country? Businesses have fallen silent, scared to speak up and to speak out. I think they believe it's all going to be fine. We're not really going to leave the union. We won't really leave the single market, and we won't really leave the customs union. They're going to get a sharp shock. Yes, of course.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way. Will she agree with me that when she and I and other members of this House voted rightly to give the British people the ultimate say in this, we did not vote to take away the rights of EU citizens which live in this country like my parents, and it's disgraceful that we are not honouring their rights as it stands today.
I completely agree with my honourable friend, and I include him in those many brave souls on this side who, in the face of abuse, even death threats, have stood up and been true to what they believe in, and I agree with him. So what's happened, Mr. Speaker? Why has there been this outbreak of silence? Can I just quote, before I take my honourable friend, the wise words of Edmund Burke? Because half a dozen grasshoppers under a fern make the field ring with their importunate chink, whilst thousands of great cattle reposed beneath the shadow of the British oak chew the cud and are silent. Pray do not imagine that those who make the noise are the only inhabitants of the field. And that is what has happened, Mr. Speaker, and it now must stop. We now must make sure that everybody is free and able to stand up and say what they believe and no longer cower in fear of 4 newspapers and this never-ending chorus, which I don't believe represents certainly my constituents, and I will give way.
We're very grateful on these benches for all the advice that she's giving us. I'm sure they're grateful as well sometimes. But can I just ask her, was she a member of the government that tried to cut net migration to tens of thousands? Did she stand as a Conservative member in the last general election and the one before on a manifesto to cut net migration to tens of thousands? I just ask.
Well, let me make it clear, Mr. Speaker, I don't think anybody would say I haven't been forthright in putting forward my views about the positive benefits of immigration to our country. The best way that the government can reduce those figures, of course, is to take out overseas students, and if only they would do that, it would be the right thing to do. But, Mr. Speaker, I remain far from convinced that, notwithstanding the considerable abilities and efforts of our Prime Minister and our government, we will not actually get, as the honourable member for Derby North has said, any good deal as we now embark upon these negotiations. In 2 years, I do not believe we will secure a good bespoke deal on trade, the customs union, and indeed our nation's security. I hope very much to be proved wrong, and I will of course support the Prime Minister and our government as they embark on these most important and difficult set of negotiations in decades, with consequences for generations to come. But what happens if no deal is secured? Mr. Speaker, it's difficult to see how any government could put a deal that they believe is inadequate in some way to this place. So I want, please, assurances from the government that in the event of no good deal being reached, all options will be placed before this House, and we, on behalf of all our constituents, including our businesses, are able to decide what happens next. We may need more time. We certainly don't want any jump off the cliff onto World Trade Organization tariffs, out of the single market, and also out of the customs union, which would be so dangerous for all our businesses in all sectors and all sizes. Mr. Speaker, let us now begin to heal the wounds, heal the divides, and come together and work together to get the best deal for our country as we leave the European Union.
Kate Hoey.